another topic we've been getting a lot of questions about as workers continue to work from home here, coming up on a year since some of these pandemic restrictions went into place. That's striking a chord with a lot of people out there on the tax front, wondering if they can write some things down, as well as potentially if you move, what kind of tax implications that might carry too. So here to break down all of that for us is our next guest, Timothy Speiss. He's a partner at EisnerAmper, and he joins us right now. Timothy, thanks for coming on here. I guess we'll start with what people should know about what's different this tax year as they start to file, if they moved or can write anything off. What's different due to the pandemic?
Well, right now, what's different is that if you, let me start with pre-pandemic. The typical rules are that you are taxed in the state where you reside. And also, if you're working in that same state, you have tax withholdings. What's changed now is that many persons have relocated to other jurisdictions. Take New York, for example. Many people have left New York City, gone to other jurisdictions. Florida, we're aware. We have relationships in California, for example, who relocated to Colorado. And it's raised a bit of a conundrum because of how the states want to tax those persons who've left their home state, so to speak, and gone elsewhere.
I mean, I guess the question is also where they should file. That would be the natural follow-up there. But I want to go back to something that we were talking about this morning, sort of in our meeting, because there's a lot of people who are looking at the expenses that have piled up over the last year, just working from home, whether that is utility costs, whether you want to add rent in there, having to buy furniture to work. Can any of those actually be written off? I mean, how should people be approaching that or looking at those expenses that have piled up as they look at filing their taxes?
The expenses that are incurred by relocation due to the pandemic generally are not going to be tax deductible. I can tell you, though, that we are working with some employers now where they are reimbursing certain expenses that are incurred by their employer under what's called an accountable plan rule. So if myself, for example, or maybe one of you, you're incurring telephone expenses, you might have gone out and bought some special equipment to supplement your performance, you're working from home. If an employer has an accountable plan, they can reimburse you for that, and that will not be deemed to be income to you.
Interesting. Yeah, we've heard from a few people having to deal with surging costs, particularly in their energy bills, even here at Yahoo Finance. Timothy, one other question, too, to kind of get to the move question, and I'm just speaking hypothetically here, but let's just say there was a guy named Gak Zuzman who moved from one state to another. One of the things that we talk about is establishing domicile, right, or residency in states. So when you're talking to people who do move states and you know, kind of the case to be proven there, what is your advice to people to maybe show that they did reestablish residency in different states, or what should people be doing maybe ahead of tax time?
That's a great question. We started to receive these questions back in the summer. We had people wanting to relocate again from New York and go elsewhere, but also establish residency, especially those that had vacation homes. We had one example where a client wanted to physically move from New York and go to New Jersey because of the pandemic. And we counseled that client to say that if you're really trying to break ties with New York, you want to move, you're moving to a separate jurisdiction, New Jersey, you have to do certain things. You actually have to relocate. If you have a lease, you have to break that lease. If you're living in a home, you should actually physically move. There's also other tests that many states use when they undertake audit to demonstrate that someone actually left a state jurisdiction. One of them is, did you leave behind near and dear items? Did you cancel certain memberships? You really need to have a clean break. Did you renew a driver's license in the second jurisdiction? In my example, New Jersey. Also forwarding mail, making sure that you have asserted a new address, which would then be, in my example, New Jersey. These are all very important factors. To simply leave your dwelling place in New York and go to New Jersey, in my example, and then assert you're no longer a New York resident will not work because of the additional steps that I just said you need to undertake.
I mean, that raises a lot of questions, especially because you have referenced New York so much about just how significant the decline in tax revenue will be for a state like New York. You know, when you look at how much things have shifted up, what does it say about, you think, where just when you look at tax season and just how complicated people's taxes are likely to be because of all of the movements there. I mean, what are you advising your clients right now in terms of the timeline they should be looking at and how proactive they should be in trying to get, really trying to go line by line on some of these changes that they may have to look into as a result of just the work environment that has shifted?
Good question. Thank you. One of the most fundamental questions we're asking, and we're in contact with our clients frequently throughout the year, and we're already aware of clients that have made a move, in my example, say to New Jersey. We're gathering information. We want to know, for example, if they did move, tell us about that move. What did you actually do? I know I refer back to my earlier comments as evidence and proof that you actually moved or relocated.